Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Opposition leader says he may consider denouncing his British citizenship. National Security Minister reveals that contract killing has become a thriving business. And later in sports, PFJL seeks answer for the state of National Stadium field for JPL finals. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kerry-Ann Simpson. Here are the details. We begin with news that the death of controversial clergyman Kevin Smith, the head of Pathways International Kingdom Restoration Ministries, has been ruled a suicide. The verdict was delivered by the coroner's court this morning. Smith and Police Constable Orlando Irons died in the October 25 crash on the Linstead bypass in St. Catherine. The judge also ruled that the dangerous and unlawful actions of Smith when he held on to the left shoulder of the driver caused the constable's death. Additionally, the court found that the other two police officers in the vehicle were not neglect in carrying out their duties. We'll have more on this ruling in subsequent newscasts. As a saga concerning the opposition leader Mark Golding's British citizenship deepens, Mr. Golding now says he would consider giving it up. He was a guest on TVJ's Smile Jamaica morning program. After mounting pressure for opposition leader Mark Golding to relinquish his British citizenship, the opposition leader says he may consider it should the new constitution requires it. But as it stands,
the constitution allows, as I've said, Commonwealth citizens to be in the parliament. And I've always regarded it as important to comply with the constitution and the laws of Jamaica. So we're going through a process of reform now. If this matter is debated, and the Jamaican people feel strongly that the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, as two individuals, should not have dual citizenship, I would take the necessary steps to relinquish that status.
Mr. Golding has described the saga surrounding his British citizenship as a distraction. He's convinced it's a personal attack on him. He contends that his citizenship status cannot be compared to the 2015 dual citizenship saga, which saw several MPs denouncing the U.S. citizenship.
The Commonwealth are nations who were largely former colonies of the UK, but the US is not included in that. They have never been a member of the Commonwealth. So there was an instance in 2007 when a number of candidates were, in fact, not eligible to be in Parliament because they had citizenship from countries that were not in the Commonwealth. And those matters were taken to court, and the court made its ruling.
They were booted from Parliament. They had to come back in.
They had to by-elections that were held, correct? Some of them, I think they renounced their citizenship in order to be eligible.
Right.
He also hit back at Prime Minister Andrew Holness's comment that there should be no question by citizens that there is split loyalties.
The PM is not really in a position to say that because the PM has sworn allegiance to the King. In 2021, he joined the King's Privy Council voluntarily and would have had to swear an oath or affirm an oath of loyalty to the King. That was a couple of years before he suddenly came on the train about decolonization and becoming a republic. So he's a flip-flopper on this issue.
In the meantime, Mr. Golding has reaffirmed that his commitment is to the people of Jamaica.
This whole question of renouncing, that status is something I've never considered before. And I'm going to think about it. But my initial position on it is I think it's an unreasonable request, given the current constitution that we have. But, it's something that I'm prepared to consider going forward.
Human rights group Freedom Imaginaries continue to be concerned about the treatment of Haitians who arrive in the country. The latest batch came Monday, but the human rights group says it's facing a number of barriers as it tries to offer help. More in this report.
Attorney and founder of human rights organization Freedom Imaginaries, Melania Lane, says Haitian refugees continue to be denied legal representation. On Monday, at least 8 Haitians were apprehended by the police after arriving in the island on a sailboat in the Hectors River area of Portland. They are now in police custody. Ms. Lane says she was denied access to them.
I'm always denied access, and it's something that we have challenged, including in the court. And so I'm hoping that the various actions that we filed in court will have a chilling effect on what has been a practice of denying access to legal assistance.
And Ms. Elaine revealed the humanitarian situation of the Haitians seeking asylum in Jamaica.
What's happening is that there's a system of systematic detentions of Haitian nationals who are found to be in an irregular situation. Some of them are exposed to deplorable conditions, including physical abuse. I have 2 cases of Haitians being physically abused and burned with fire by fellow inmates and not without access to medical attention. You have children who don't have access to education, including the asylum seekers in St. Mary who arrived in July last year. There are children in that group who have not had access to Jamaica's education system since July. And so, what I'm describing here is a situation of urgency where, there are no mechanisms for proper humanitarian protection in place.
She also provided an update on the 6 Haitians in St. Mary who were denied asylum.
Right now, as we speak, there's an interim order in place preventing the government from returning them until June 7th, which is 1 day after the application will come back before the court.
Nakinski Robinson, TVJ News.
The story this afternoon of a dark underworld that is thriving in the island and creating big problems for law enforcement. That is contract killing. According to National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, in a twisted way, young people are using the illicit activity as their so-called job. As Kalisha Williams reports, it's believed lottery scamming is fueling the activity.
Some young people aspire to be lawyers, doctors, engineers, and most recently, social media influencers. But in the criminal underworld in Jamaica, another disturbing profession, as it's been called, is thriving.
They retaliate, in this case, not by the gang walking to a community 5 or 6. They hire contract killers, which is the new occupation of the shutters, so to speak. And these are syndicates. I don't think we have prosecuted any yet.
Speaking at a National Integrity Action seminar over the weekend, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang explained that lottery scamming is fueling contract killing and, by extension, has led to criminal organizations being more organized.
It is not a very visible change unless you live with it, quite frankly. And it means every scammer who is skilled can form a gang, because you're dealing with young individuals who are 15 to 20. They acquire huge resources.
However, Dr. Chang explained that the police have been working above and beyond to disrupt the disturbing practice. And again, he's urging the police to use the full force of the law to root out contract killers.
The DPP referred to the shooting of 3 individuals in East Kingston just last week. The week before that, there was 4 killed in West Kingston. And there's sometimes my own concerns or a difference of opinion within the comments of my civil society people come up, because it was an excellent piece of work by the police. And my only regret was I didn't get all 6. But my friend in the JFJ reminded the society that the police had 50 fatal shootings this year.
Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
The St. Elizabeth police are investigating the murder of a 31-year-old female gas pump attendant. The deceased has been identified as Shireen Farquharson. Reports are that about 1 this morning, she was at home in Pepper District, St. Elizabeth, with her mother and brother when loud explosions were heard. It's understood that 3 armed men used forced entry to get into Shireen's room, shooting her several times. Her mother and brother escaped unharmed. The police were called and the body was found lying in a pool of blood with several bullet wounds. No motive has been established for the killing. Brace for more rain. The Meteorological Service says a trough across the Western Caribbean is expected to move into the Central Caribbean, bringing unstable weather conditions across the region, including Jamaica. This system is expected to bring increased rainfall across the island starting this afternoon. The forecast is for periods of showers and thunderstorms to affect most parishes for the remainder of this week, with the peak in activity expected on Wednesday across eastern parishes. And it's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Construction at the Linstead Health Centre has been halted after a stop order was issued. Chairman of St. Catherine's Public Health and Sanitation Committee, Sidney Rose, said this was done because the necessary documentation was not submitted to the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation. Mr. Rose says 2 weeks ago he was invited to visit the health centre to observe conditions at the facility. It was then he observed construction taking place.
It's a public space. And as a government, we are to lead by example. So if we are going to be doing any form of construction within a public space, all the necessary drawings must be submitted and all the necessary recommendations must be sought from external agencies and departments, and the ultimate approval be given by us.
He emphasized the importance of upholding regulations and has urged the Ministry of Health to comply with national laws.
The Ministry of Health is no exception. They ought to adhere to the laws of this country. And the law makes it clear that if and when we are going to be treated with any form of construction, whether in its totality or partially, all the necessary engineering works must be approved. Whether above ground or below ground or wherever, it must be approved.
The Ministry of Health says there have been no deaths linked to the current warm temperatures. At the same time, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says it is likely to happen. While speaking recently in Clarendon, Dr. Tufton expressed concerns about persons who have underlying conditions.
The heat would impact that, as the doctor said. In our case, when people are referred to the emergency tent, they are detained for a while, not forcibly, to relax, to bring the possibility of the blood pressure down, give them water to drink, look at their medical regime and whether or not they're on medication, whether they're taking it or not, and then from there another test is administered to determine what the true state of their position is.
The health minister is urging Jamaicans to stay hydrated during this period.
The heat is hard, as you can see in the parish and in the country. We had sent out an advisory on it. The fact is, the heat can damage your skin. It can affect your blood pressure, as was said earlier. It can make you sick. So we do say avoid it where you can, and certainly hydrate and rehydrate. And I would say with water, not with sugary drink, in order to counter the effects of the heat.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Jamaica spent 4.6% less money on the importation of raw materials, intermediate goods in the last calendar year. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica says in 2023, the country spent $2.2 billion compared to $2.3 billion in 2022. Imports in the related group industrial supplies were down 8.1%. This was due to the lower value of corn for the manufacture of animal feed coming into the country, along with the lower cost for undenatured bioethanol fuel. Statin says there was a 13.9% drop in total spending on food, including beverages, mainly for industry, which was valued at $222 million. However, the value of imports for parts and accessories of capital goods except transport equipment saw a 23% decline. Further afield, more than 187,000 Honda Ridgeline trucks have been recalled due to a rear-view camera issue. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says in certain cold, wintry weather conditions, electric wiring tied to the camera might fatigue or break. This could prevent the driver from getting a proper rear-view image, which could pose a potential crash risk. Honda says it has received just over 400 claims relating to the issue as of earlier this month. The recall is in effect for Honda Ridgeline pickups with model years 2020 through to 2024. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Haiti's international airport Toussaint Louverture reopened to commercial traffic after 3 months of closure due to gang violence. The main seaport, however, remains closed. U.S. military planes have landed at the airport to help prepare for foreign forces. Gangs have been carrying out coordinated attacks demanding the resignation of the then Prime Minister Ariel Henry government. And on the international scene, Iran is mourning the sudden death of late President Ibrahim Raisi, who was killed along with a foreign minister and other officials in remote mountains. According to the Iranian constitution, the little-known Vice President Mohammad Mukber has now become interim president, paving the way for elections to be held within 50 days. Iranian-backed militant groups such as Yemen's Hussein's, Hamas, and Lebanon's Hezbollah are also publicly mourning Raisi's death. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Nakinsky Robinson.
Thank you, Nakinsky. We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jermaine Brown.